sit down with me for a second. I want you to imagine your favorite Pokemon. I think everyone has one. Whether it was the starter you bonded with throughout your entire journey, or that one Pokemon that carried you to victory against the Elite Four. Think of all the memories you share. Maybe you have merch of them. Maybe it was the theme of your favorite birthday party back when you were 7. Do you have that Pokemon? Can you picture that Pokemon? Good. Now that you have that Pokemon in your head right now.
I have a gun, and I'm gonna shoot that Pokemon unless you like this video right now. Now, subscribe, and follow my Twitch too. Good. Alright, it lives another day.
This John Chairs video is about a problem I have with Pokemon. I've started the last 3 to 4 videos with some non sequitur that sorta kinda leads into the topic I want to talk to you about. For the sake of this video, I just want to jump right into the topic. Yeah, so rather than reviewing something for this video, in a broader sense, I wanted to tackle something that kinda haunts me as a collector of video games. As most good chuds do, I started collecting video games because, well, it's a long story, and one we'll get into with the inevitable John Shares video on SpongeBob SquarePants. Why?
Wouldn't you like to know, Sponge Boy?
When I was a kid, I didn't have, unfettered access to every video game ever, obviously. But I'd say my parents never shied away from getting me, 3 to 5 games on Christmas, or, 1 to 2 for my birthday. I guess Santa loved me more.
Merry Christmas!
Either way, what I'm getting at is this problem wasn't one of access, but of interest. Ladies and gentlemen, do I just not care about Pokemon? See, when I was a kid, I was on that DS like right on goddamn rice. And yes, especially the Nintendo 3DS when it came out later. I had almost every iteration, except for the 2DS. And I only threw up ravioli while playing Mario Party DS in the car with my dad and uncle with one of those models. Guess which one in the comments? The games I played on that thing were games like Mario, Sonic, Kirby. Hell, I didn't even really touch the Zelda games until the 3DS released Ocarina of Time 3D. I had my niches. I loved the Mario RPG series. I mean, Bowser's Inside Story stays in the top 5 games of all time alongside Parappa 2, Metal Gear Solid 2, Yakuza 5, But for some reason, one thing I never, ever got into was Pokemon. I feel like that one fucking tweet telling me I should have been investing in real estate instead of being a fucking 5-year-old. I don't know. Yeah, so ironically, for every Mario, Sonic, and Mario and Sonic game I had on that dual-screened name, I never got into Pokemon, like all of my peers. I don't know. I was seeing the same advertisements they were, and worse, I missed out on what could have easily been called the golden age of the franchise on the Nintendo DS. Platinum, black, white, silver, you fucking name it. And I even had a cool-ass older cousin with Black 2 and Starfy. And I only gave a fuck about Starfy! Dear God, I wish I could just go back and...
Oh, God, Joey, I promise it's cool. Just, God, think of your stock portfolio.
What's some Pikachus? Bro, you love Pikachu.
But, nope. No dice. There's no point in dogging on little Joey. I love that kid. And I do it enough every time I pass by the mirror. So, instead, I think it's time I stop lying to you. Is it a lie by omission? Am I even lying? I don't know. What the hell? Roll the clip. It was the summer of 2013. For my, 10th birthday or something? A crisp copy of Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. Mwah. As the summer chirped away and the days I never knew I'd never get back slipped away in the safety of a child's bedroom, I went to a fair in my local town. I went with a friend from out of town, too. We had a blast. And, most important of all, a dentist's booth? Yeah. So, they were holding a contest for local kids in the area who could color in the same coloring page the best. And to the winner, a gift card of the Toys R Us variety. Me and my friend bent over that table. Ayo, pause. Me and my friend leaned over that table and colored our hearts out, not knowing what fate would bring. And a week later, I was sitting on my couch when I got a call. Not only did both of us win, but our victory was secured by a simple trick most dentists don't want you to know.
You two were the only ones who didn't color in the teeth yellow.
Yes, dear viewer, it took the mass stupidity of God knows how many local children and the Bart Simpson-esque tomfoolery to get me into Toys R Us to buy myself a copy of...
How do I say this? Pokemon X.
Oh, please don't kill me, please! Please don't kill me!
Yeah, apparently people, and by people I mean Pokemon fans at the time, did not look too kindly on these games. Or at least that's the impression I got every time I told someone that was the only Pokemon game I played, and they hit me with a...
Whoa! Is that
Pokemon X and Pokemon Y?
No.
I thought it was perfectly passable. The game functioned. The plot, from what I can remember as a 10-year-old, was pretty meh. Something about reuniting an old guy with his Pokemon and...
The French? Ugh, no wonder people think this sucks.
Something roller skates, something ghost girl, and hey, I liked it. I liked being able to dress up, and I wasn't new to the RPG genre due to all my experience with Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi franchise, which I was knee-deep in at the time. Well, here's the fun part about that. After X and Y came out, the 3DS went down swinging with some other heavy hitters in the Pokemon franchise. Sun and Moon, Alpha Sapphire, Omega Ruby, Ultra Sun and Moon. I only ever got X. Whether the games had too much water or I was allergic to Hawaii for some odd reason, the Pokemon games I owned proceeded to dry up immediately. Seriously, I think the only other Pokemon game I played after that was Pokepark for the Wii at someone else's house. I even watched Pokemon Indigo League and the Black and White series on Netflix. What the hell? I was like impervious to some Pokemon propaganda for some reason. The guy in the zombie movie who's immune, but for like Pokemon fever or some bullshit. I was bold enough to ask for Super Mario Sunshine after seeing Chuck Conroy play it on his channel. I didn't even know what a GameCube was! But no, Pokemon's where I drew the line. Sure, why the hell not? Well, I would start collecting video games as a hobby around 4 years later from that point, compounded by years of watching Angry Video Game Nerd, Did You Know Gaming, Peanut Butter Gamer, and I think I had this weird kind of respect and honor on what the internet deemed the best kind of games. You know the deal, Sonic 06 bad, Arrow to the Knee, shit like that. The kind of thing that made me look at a copy of Metal Gear Solid 2 and Shadow of the Colossus on a used game store shelf and go, "Oh, gee, these would be important additions to my library." With that added collective consciousness from the wider gaming community in my head, I started to think of Pokemon in a different light. Where I once saw a Nintendo franchise that never really intrigued me, I now saw it as a cultural touchstone of the 90s and a handheld gaming titan. You know, that kind of gave me a newfound respect for it. That newfound respect became...
Peter, by the way, filed for bankruptcy. The company immediately... Good time for my voice to go. Fired 3,200 workers in March, warning that economic growth could slow. Now, the Institute of Supply Management also reported a rise in prices.
But you love Pikachu.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I was smart enough to buy any of the DS, 3DS Pokemon games before they skyrocketed in price around early 2021. I actually didn't pay the franchise in whole too much mind because I was more preoccupied with my PS2 and GameCube collection. Honestly, I think I was going through my Dreamcast era pre-Sonic Colors, Yakuza, Metal Gear brain rot saga throughout that whole stretch of time. Truthfully, I do not have a DS or 3DS anymore to even play those games anymore. Which brings me to an interesting footnote in our tall tale today. As game collecting grew into a slightly more popular hobby, much to my, and I assume every other collector's collective despair, the price of used games flew up due to people swooping in and buying them at all these insane prices. It's the reason Pokemon games used are worth so much despite selling in the millions. People let them. While Pokeflate... Oh, I'm not going to call it that. While Pokemon inflate... Ooh, no, nuts. While Sonic inflation has a chokehold over the industry, it never stopped me from dreaming about the white whale kind of games I'd always wanted to get for my collection one day. And don't make fun of me for some of the prices for these, since even $80 for a video game is too much for me. Don't even get me started on the new standard price. You know, games like the original Silent Hill 2, Chibi Robo, Tulip, Kirby Air Ride, games that were so expensive I wasn't going to be buying them unless some divine force... Anyway, I started streaming in 2023. With streaming came this amazing community of people that suddenly handed me the means to tackle some of my biggest dreams in my game collecting journey. More specifically, with the money I made from streaming. I was able to buy games I couldn't before, then I got to play those games on stream, so on and so forth. If you had forgot how this ties back into our video topic, I don't blame you, because one of those white whale games for me, no matter how misguided it was for me, was Pokémon XD Gale of Darkness. First of all, I said Gale of Darkness, not Pokémon Colosseum, for those who know, I guess. These years, sadly, the only handheld consoles I have is a PSP that I rarely use. I used it all the time in high school as an MP3 player, if that makes it any better. It doesn't? Alright, okay. Pretty much sometime after the Nintendo 3DS retired and I graduated from high school, handheld gaming just died for me. I stopped playing games if they weren't on my TV or PC, and let's be real here, my Switch hasn't left its dock in like 5 years. My point is, when it was time for me to start collecting Pokemon games, I didn't have a 3DS anymore, and even if I did, I wasn't spending that much on a DS game. Instead, I turned my gaze to something more my style, an older, traditionally styled Pokemon game conveniently found on the GameCube. As Pokemon's origins can be found on the humble Game Boy, and also in no small part to how much the game encourages you to battle and trade Pokemon with friends, the Pokemon franchise never really found itself in any major form on home consoles. I guess carrying around your SNES was too obnoxious for 90s kids. That being said, Pokemon's main games stayed on handhelds right up until the 3DS was personally choked out by Yoshiaki Koizumi himself. Before that, Pokemon got some weird-ass games on consoles. The Pokemon Stadium series was surprisingly small in scope, being just a glorified battle sim, losing almost all of the story, world-building, and structure of the mainline games. For me, as an outsider looking in, I was always confused by the mere concept of a Pokemon game with the power of the Nintendo 64, basically throwing all the potential out the window to do something like that. With that in mind, the Pokemon series got even weirder with Pokemon Snap and...
Pikachu! Why are you doing this to me? Pikachu, why? Just look at all the tissues! They're everywhere!
Pokemon Snap is actually pretty genius if you ask me. I think it was the perfect thing to do if you were going to do a mainline Pokemon game on consoles. Just really creative, on-rails shooter? Technically that's an on-rail shooter, where you're encouraged to take pictures of Pokemon in natural habitats and throw apples at them to make them do cool shit. Hey You Pikachu, on the other hand, was confusing as fuck. We're not going to go off on a tangent that big to cover that, but instead, Pokemon kicked its feet all the way up to the GameCube generation, where in 2004, the GameCube had its own interesting spin on the traditional RPG format of the series with...
The new Pokemon is...
Pokémon Colosseum.
Yeah, so what I actually played and paid almost $200 for was its sequel, Pokémon XD Gale of Darkness, released in 2005. Yes, my brain doesn't work right, that's why I like Sonic the Hedgehog so much. But come on, why name your new take on the mainline Pokemon games so similarly to the series that had nothing going on but this? Clearly they pivoted away from that naming scheme with the sequel, and thanks to that it fell on my radar as the second ever Pokemon game I actually played. Yes, dear viewer, the only Pokemon games I, the John Shares, have played is Pokemon X and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. The worst part is I love to play any other game than Gale of Darkness. And now it's gonna cost me another $250 fucking dollars. Fuck my stupid Chungus game collector life, whatever! Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness had what I would say was the perfect scope for a console Pokemon game. I guess it helped that the last one I played was on the 3DS, but I really liked the location, I loved the combat and how you were actually stealing corrupted Pokemon to save them, rather than the more standard wild fields and routes of its contemporaries. Even though I enjoyed those as well, I understand that the GameCube was somewhat limited in its scope, and I was thoroughly enthralled with the grittier plot of XD and its main protagonist. That guy looked fucking awesome. I'd say I'm surprised we haven't seen much more from this in recent times, but I haven't played any Pokemon that's come out in the last 10-ish years, so I wouldn't know. And why haven't I? Here's where we get to the main point of the video in my mind. Not so much what games I've played in the series and my opinion on them, but rather... after I started collecting games and started to appreciate Pokemon more for its importance as a franchise to gaming, why didn't I start playing Pokemon on the Switch? Take a wild fucking guess.
But the proper care we've all come to expect has not been shown here.
That put Jeffrey Epstein
are the worst main series Pokemon games.
Once I missed my chance to play any of the 3DS games, I was getting to the point where I was spending money on my own video games. And given Nintendo's push for the first hybrid console, we were about to witness home console mainline Pokemon games like never before.
Oh boy, check out this cool monkey's paw I found.
So it's important to remind you that this video is not a review of any of the games I'm necessarily talking about here. And not even Pokemon X or Pokemon XD, and certainly not any of the Switch games because, obviously I haven't played them. I just want to talk about why, in my opinion, the franchise has just been writing off its past successes as the biggest franchise in the whole world and really hasn't been doing anything to bring new people into the series through quality games or interesting new deviations on the formula. First off, in 2018 we got Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. These games were remakes of Pokemon Yellow, and the only big changes here were they changed up catching Pokemon, lifting the system somewhat from Pokemon Go. In fact, this game was so heavily tied to Pokemon Go, which was still in its peak popularity at the time, I'd say. I never really played Pokemon Go back when I was 13, so this stuff didn't really hit with me. Moreover, if I was gonna try and get into Pokemon for the second time, mind you, this is back in 2018, and I first played Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness in 2023, I wanted to wait to see what the Pokemon Company's next big project was, and not only really what looked like a budget remake to me. Well, in 2019, I did get what I wanted.
Oh boy, check out this cool monkey's paw I found.
I'm at a bit of a loss for words here because the whole reason I wanted to write this video was to kind of examine the failure of the Pokemon Switch games, the irony being that they're some of the best-selling games in the franchise. And I was tackling this at the perspective of a 16-year-old high schooler with two best friends who were frankly, obsessed with Pokemon. Yet, here I was, I felt like I was the only one who saw that announcement and was like, why does it look so bad? I was taken aback, honestly. For one of gaming's biggest franchises to basically start churning out 3DS quality graphics on a console with Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey, the wild areas looked so horrible. And at its worst, it looks like a fucking mobile game. That was honestly enough to put me off from it. I was disappointed for sure, but for what it was worth, it was their first non-remake Switch game? Despite how ugly and flat-out boring the story trailer made it look. It's seriously... Okay, I'm worried I might lose some people on this argument since it's a bit overplayed, but the textures and models being so low-res and the animations being all choppy and blurry don't magically make the game bad per se, since they aren't nice to look at and the games on the Switch can and did look better. But to me, all of this shows a lack of any care to me, and no one cared that the final game trailer looked like that. Or that they shrunk down the Pokédex and shipped the game with all that pop-in and the horrible frame rate shit. So, as someone who had been sold on this idea that Pokemon was this incredible flagship of gaming culture, it was a total shock to see everyone sort of lap this shit up and review it just as well as games like Black and White. Again, this is not a review of Sword and Shield. It's probably a lot more nuanced once you play the game, I'm sure, but I don't see any nuance explaining away how lazy the first big Pokemon game on the Switch ended up looking and being. So, I obviously decided not to pick it up. Instead, I planned to stay the course and wait for the next mainline entry, which, as luck would have it, would come out 3 years later. And in the meantime, we were hearing rumors of a Diamond and Pearl remake, something I was actually really excited to see, given the framework we already had for Let's Go, and even Sword and Shield to some extent, just, replacing the plot in the barren open areas with what I'd heard was one of the more interesting Pokemon mainline stories, actually seemed like something that would be okay picking. Okay, alright. Here's the thing. As childish as this sounds, and I'm okay with the criticism, I was out. The minute I saw that they were doing some confusing-ass chibi remake, I'll say it, this was disappointing. With the already existing games on the Switch, they made it look even more of a mobile port than the other two combined. Seriously, how did Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee end up with the full 3D makeup while a game that came out nearly 3 years after looks so underwhelming? I can see how they were taking a more direct interpretation from the stylings of the Nintendo DS games, but again, by that logic, isn't this just ass backwards? How did Pokemon Yellow go from this to that? What, did Pikachu pull up the ladder once he got his 3D remake? The greedy bastard. So, now we're 3 for 3 on Pokemon games on the Switch I was thoroughly put off by. I was really excited to see what the older games could look like with this new power from the Nintendo Switch, and I got my dreams crushed. And the next Nintendo Direct was just the final nail in the coffin for me.
Pokemon Legends Arceus!
Shockingly enough, out of this generation of mediocrity, we got the game I was almost kind of looking for. The Pokemon franchise was finally getting its first shakeup. Real-time transitions in the field to battles, real-time battling, capturing, trainer movement during battles, being able to let your Pokemon out to just chill with you and each other, and somehow these were all new to Pokemon in the year 2022. But it didn't matter because it was finally here. Oh my god, bro. I cannot stress this enough. Trailers should make games look good. Pokemon trailers have been actively showing off shit I wouldn't let my mom walk into my room to see. This shit is embarrassing. For God's sake, this shit is getting mogged by Genshin Impact on fucking iPhones. What the hell is Game Freak cooking? I'll be honest with you, I want to come back to this sometime in the future because one of the real main reasons I didn't pick this up, besides how ugly it looked, was because I didn't want to get invested in a side series that wasn't going to be largely iterated or adapted on anymore, and be disappointed with the series even more than I already was from missing out on this niche side series. Of course, there's another point to this all as well. Mostly, all of the Switch games I just talked about were full-priced, AAA, 60 damn USD. These games barely looked like they were worth $30 fucking dollars, especially remakes of games nearly 20, 40 years old. Especially some cheap-ass chibi remake. I'm still miffed at all the missed potential here. But you bet your ass you were paying $60 whole dollars for these bottom-tier experiences. And I guess that leads us to our final stop on this miserable tour, Scarlet and Violet. I was excited for this game when I saw the teaser trailer, dude. Then, after seeing some gameplay, God, I just knew. I didn't expect it to be that bad, but dear God, I didn't know how much worse it could get. I guess my point with this video wasn't to be super analytical or wax philosophical about the quality of games. I literally did not play them. I just wanted to get this series off my chest. I wanted to explain why I'm so disappointed by this franchise, and I need to see a major overhaul in this series before I consider giving them any of my money again. Maybe we'll get a black and white remake that doesn't suck. I sure hope so, but ZNA released, and I took one look at that thing before putting the series to bed in my mind for good. That being said, my stream chat got me to pick up a copy of Pokemon Violet recently, and as of writing this, I haven't started it yet, so maybe I'll release a follow-up video at some point to rectify any misgivings in this script. For the record, I bought it used because I didn't want to support Game Freak and go against everything I just said. I mean, there's another big point to this as well. Pokemon fans actively play a part in the downward trend of Pokemon games by buying them indiscriminately due to this cosmic hold nostalgia has on them. When I'd have to imagine if a slightly less global franchise dropped this many mediocre, or worse, fundamentally broken releases like this, they would have simply fell into obscurity. So, what even comes next after Legends ZA? The Pokemon series now powered by the Nintendo Switch 2? I don't have my hopes up at all. This is never a hardware problem. This was clearly from the beginning a Game Freak Pokemon Company laziness issue, and consumers just let it happen to them by just buying and buying and buying. Please, keep in mind, I don't want to see Pokemon fail. I don't want you to come out of this video thinking I'm just some random hater that never wanted Pokemon to get popular, or I think I want to punch kids every time they go try and buy a Pokemon card pack. No, I want to like Pokemon. I have 2 favorite Pokemon. Squirtle and Espeon, okay? There, you got it out of me. I hope you guessed it in the comments. All I'm saying is, I want to like Pokemon, but I'm not brainwashed enough to just see games of this low quality and pick them up. It's just not right as a consumer to support this kind of stuff, because all it does is encourages them to give us less. Alright, I just want to see it live up to its own name. That's the main crux of this video. I think Pokemon is failing to live up to its own name. Also, I fucking love Detective Pikachu. More games like that, please. That's what I'm fucking talking about.
Yes, of course!
Whoa, calm down there, buddy. You look like you just saw a John Chair's video on Pokemon. What's that you say? You just did? Well, shucks. Thanks for watching the most recent John Chair's video again. Assuming you did, if this is your first John Chair's video, as always, please go check out the channel and all the other work that I've done. I think it's pretty good, except for like half of it, because I've only really ever made like 5 videos. I guess I wanted to talk about Pokemon this time. This was supposed to be a short video, and technically, if you count that I uploaded in November, and it's only been 2 months and some change, that's actually a pretty great turnaround for a John Chair's video. And this one was 30 minutes too, which is pretty... That's not really 30 minutes, but that's pretty novel, all things considered for me. I'm going to keep this one short. The next John Chair's video, I did put up some polls, and it looks like everybody's kind of following the creative vision that I did have anyways, which, as you might have picked up in this video, was about SpongeBob SquarePants, which I'm very... I guess interested to get into. I just want to give some quick channel updates, because unless you started listening to the John Hotline, my new podcast that I started doing, just so that you guys know I'm not dead, because I know a lot of you know that I stream on Twitch, and I know that you guys know I stream on my second channel on YouTube, The John Chair's Live. I don't blame you if you don't want to watch that stuff. I'm subscribed to YouTubers that I like their content and not their streams too. This is just a way to let you know that I'm alive and I didn't get, I guess, thrown into the back of an ice fan for being Italian. I don't know. That being said, you know, if you do want to, the most direct way to support me is by either buying John Chair's merchandise, like the John Chair's poster print. This John Chair's poster print is available. It's 11 by 17 inches on manapotioncoffee.com. There will be a link to it in the comments below. Of course, if you're not really into a poster, you can always buy the John Chair's sticker pack, which is also available at the same website, manapotioncoffee.com. I wonder if the videos that I put my best friend's business, Mana Potion Coffee, into are the ones that never get shown, like the Astrobot one, and I brought it up in the Parappa video. I wonder how that worked. I said I'd keep this one short, so I will. Thank you so much for watching. Please understand the next video will probably take some time just because my life is very busy right now. In a few days I will be starting my last semester of college, and I'm currently doing like 2 internships on top of the classes that I'm taking. So it does kind of pull me away from the computer for writing scripts and stuff, even though, frankly, I'm sure at this point you understand I'd much rather be doing this right now. But, you know, that's life. I'm an adult, unfortunately. I wish I started this when I was like 15 or so, but then you would have had to see me fat with braces, and so, unfortunately, the law of equivalent exchange lets me be a moderately attractive white guy with stubble. I'll take it. What the fuck? Dear the 5 people that watched this video that aren't subscribed and are mad that I made a video about Pokemon like this, I know I talked about Pokemon fans being an issue. You are not a bad person for liking Pokemon. Pokemon is a bad company for taking advantage of the goodwill that they rightfully earned and then started to slip away in the means of corporate greed. Talk about it in the comments. Start a fight in the comments. Please, I'm begging you. The interactions genuinely help the video get pushed out, and I have like just the smallest of hopes for this video. Okay, alright, I'm out of here. Go watch me on Twitch, or go listen to the podcast, or go watch another YouTube video. I'm not the boss of you. Thank you so much for giving me your time. Your time is your respect. And, I mean, technically, I'm sure your time is money, but I don't want to say that because it's like 4 cents, so. See you next time, chairman.